If you are a woman who is more on the petite side, or even if you're just moderate, brands are starting to sprinkle in here and there some outfits that are more suited for your body shape. Recording. Hi, welcome to the Style Toolkit. We are in the era of oversized clothes, big shoulder pads, wide leg trousers, chunky shoes. Fashion hasn't been this large since the 1980s. And if you are a woman who is more on the petite side, or even if you're just moderate, essentially anyone who isn't particularly tall, these clothes don't look like they're in proportion to your shape, and it's not just a matter of sizing down. It has to do with the silhouettes and the cuts and the fabrics, which can oftentimes be a little too heavy. It's very easy to feel like you are drowning in fabric, and also outfits that are meant to look very relaxed can just end up looking sloppy. And I could just tell you, don't wear trends. Trends are stupid, but trends affect what is available to us. But there is good news. If you fall into this category, brands are starting to sprinkle in here and there some outfits that are more suited for your body shape. And this includes both people who are maybe more on the petite size but have a very angular body, and also those who have rounded, softer features. So let's look at what the high-end designers are doing, because that is oftentimes where the trends begin. Earlier this year, we saw Miu Miu come out with a runway collection, which gathered a lot of attention, especially from people who aren't really from the fashion world. They thought the idea of wearing bejeweled panties over sheer tights a la Superman to be utterly ridiculous. But actually there are some women who are daring enough to sport this look, and it's about propping up the brand. But if you look beyond that garment, what else was in that collection? Well, there were some very oversized, bulky things, especially the leather jackets, but we also saw a lot of cardigans with matching tops that are actually quite soft and not at all chunky. And we also saw a lot of transparent fabric, right? So this kind of lightweight material can be really interesting for people who have a bit more of a delicate bone structure. And we also saw mid-length skirts. Now, this is very interesting because I often see influencers discourage people from using skirts that are knee length because it's said to be a very awkward length. And this is only true for women who are taller. If you are more petite or moderate, a lot of times that knee length is just right. This is one of those cases where you need to take advice from influencers with a grain of salt, because they get extremely good at understanding what works for them, and then they extrapolate and assume it must be true for everyone. And even professional stylists get this wrong. Dior is another great example of a brand that is offering a lot of pieces currently, and actually it seems to be not just something that they're sprinkling in, it really seems that they're leaning into this. They have a lot of pieces, blazers, cardigans, that seem much more better suited to women who are not especially tall. We are seeing some pieces that are a bit more tailored and more structured, and hence a little bit more angular, but there are also some pieces that are softer, more rounded. And take note of how they don't really go past the rise all that much. They're not trying to cover your derriere. Are we seeing this trickle down to more affordable brands? It is still early days, but I did manage to spot some pieces from Zara and also from Massimo Dutti, which are not as big and chunky, but have these more moderate proportions. And this outfit from Zara actually reminded me very much of the 1990s minimalist aesthetic. I also saw these outfits from Vince, which is a more expensive brand, but that also feel very 1990s. When people think of the 1990s, they often think of flannel shirts and baggy trousers. However, women's fashion was actually very delicate and form-fitting. I will include in the description box 2 links to some Pinterest boards I made. One is to highlight how the 1990s were very delicate, girly, and romantic. And another one highlighting the minimalism of that era. If you think of Helmut Lang and Calvin Klein, but you're going to see that there's actually a lot of overlap between the two of them. For the past few years, shoes have been quite chunky or squarish, but now we saw the reemergence of the ballerina shoes, but also pumps with stiletto or kitten heels. And also we're seeing a lot of Mary Janes that look a lot more delicate. These are also great options for women who feel that the chunkier styles or the more rectangular styles are just a little too harsh against their bone structure. Unfortunately, the reality is that whatever is trending is going to benefit some women to the detriment of others. In a perfect world, we would have all types of outfits available so that we would have greater freedom of choice, but the reality is that I look around me and I see people wearing very homogeneous styles. So when people say that everything is trending right now, I remain skeptic. Last year, a close friend of mine asked me to go with her to H&M to see if I could help her find some clothes that would suit her. She is not short at all, she's not petite, but she is very moderate. She reminds me a lot of Lizzie Kaplan, actually, in terms of her bone structure and stature. And it was so frustrating because everything at H&M was just so bulky, tops and sweaters that are just a little too relaxed at the shoulders and have a little too much excess fabric. You would think that being moderate means it's easy to dress that kind of body, but it can sometimes feel like it's very easy to wear something that sets you off balance. Recently, I told her about the same thing I'm telling you, which is, hey, good news, we are seeing more moderate proportions, jackets that are not super long, and her reaction was to say, oh yeah, it's the cropped blazers are very trendy. It's not the cropped blazers, it's just that the bottom hem of the outfit doesn't need to be overextended. In my mind, at least, a cropped jacket or a cropped blazer is something that is exposing your midriff. And actually, a lot of the cropped blazers we've been seeing are still quite bulky and angular. And they're made to look like, you know, like this type of blazer, right? Which is a bit androgynous, but then it almost looks like you took one of those blazers and you just cut them with a pair of scissors. And that's kind of like the statement that you're making, right? But it's still very bulky. I want to add a little disclaimer here because while I was editing the video, I kept referring to these current styles as bulky, and some people might think that I'm disparaging it. I actually love these outfits that are larger. I'm wearing quite large shoulder pads. My blazer is quite long. The video is for people for whom these styles do not work. When people are discussing style online, I also notice this tendency to think in very binary terms, that an outfit is either oversized, large and chunky, or it's tight and bodycon. And what happened to the in-between? There is a spectrum. Clothes that are not necessarily tight, but that just kind of follow the natural shape of your body. But worry not if you are feeling alienated from fashion because everything is just a little too chunky, too large on your body. And please don't feel self-conscious about dressing for your body because you think it's not on trend, because actually it is. You'll be the fashion-forward person who's picked up on some things that are still a little too subtle for the masses. And believe you me, a lot of people feel the way you do, and they're eager to see clothes that aren't big. And also, if you wear clothes that suit your body shape, how can anyone criticize that?